similar plight of voicelessness. Her husband, Gustave Noble, is depicted as the typical patriarch of the family, and she as the submissive, supportive wife who has no identity of her own. Throughout the novel, she is shadowed by her husband and is only identified in his light. Her desperation for control in the lives of her husband and her children leads her to the path of superstition and black magic, the only agency she manages to find for herself. In matters, Roxana Chenoy is again confined to the four walls of her household and has nothing outside of it. She slaves away tirelessly for her husband and her father without breathing a word about her discomfort. She is seen concerned about her husband Yazad's meals, about his comfort, and about his state of mind like an ideal wife. She fits perfectly in the societal frame of a good wife, a good daughter, and a good mother, but she fails in even giving a feeble structure to her own identity. Another female character in Family Matters is Kumi Contractor, Roxana's stepsister. While reading the novel, I felt that just like Indira Gandhi, she too is denied any emotion other than anger and bitterness. I also felt that perhaps Mistry is too cautious with the depiction of emotions for all of his characters. The only depths I could see in his works are the depths in sorrow and pain. He characterizes Kumi in such a frame that her death to the reader almost comes as a relief. Mystery's female characters are either confined within the household or they are so called antisocial loners, like Miss Kutpishia in Such a Long Journey and Willie Cardmaster in Family Matters. Both these characters have resorted to black magic and gambling, respectively, in order to deal with their dejection and isolation. They somehow do not fit in the ideal structure of the society. Another aspect in Mystery's Family Matters, which I felt was unfair to the women it concerns, was that of Yasmin Contractor and Lucy Briganza's treatment at the hands of Nariman Baki. Nariman and Lucy were in love with each other. They were together for 11 years, but submitting to the wishes of his father, he marries Yasmin. Lucy, in her dejected state, gives up on every shred of self-respect and runs after him for the lost love. She becomes a servant in one of the residents in Nariman's building, so she could stay close to him. She ultimately loses her mind and kills herself along with Yasmin. Yasmin, on the other hand, was not given the respect and love of a wife. She was treated as a mere tool for validation of a married life for Nariman. Now, there are other aspects in the works of Mistry which I would have liked to discuss, but because of the constraint of time, I had to stick to just one aspect. The other aspects which were highlighted were the struggles between life and death, which he depicts through the characters in a fine balance that was Manik, and in the character of Tehmul in Such a Long Journey. Then there is existential crisis, which I feel that all of his protagonists underwent. I felt that in his works, when his characters suffer existential crisis, death is the only release that they are offered. They never get better, just like A Little Life. In that also, the entire point of the author was that the characters remain miserable throughout their life, and death is the only release which they find. Then there is again the impact of religion and politics on the common people and how it controls their life. The desperate attempts of the characters to gain control, like that of Gustave Noble and that of Dilnawaz Noble. And then again, the final thing that I felt was very evident was search for meaning in the lives of characters. I would like to end my presentation with a quote from Charlotte Bronte's Shirley. She says, and I quote, "If men could see us as we really are, they would be a little amazed. But the cleverest, the acutest men are often under an illusion about women. They do not read them in a true light. They misapprehend them, both for good and evil. Their good woman is a queer thing, half doll, half angel. Their bad women, almost always a fiend." Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjana. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Next, we have Monika Rani, Junior Research Fellow from the Department of English Studies, Central University of Jharkhand. She is going to present on the Commonwealth Writers' Prize winning Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Adichie in 2005. I request Monika Rani to take over the presentation. Please take
Good
over.
afternoon. Thank you so much. Good evening. Good evening, one and all. I would like to thank the organizers first for giving me this opportunity to speak. The title of my presentation is The Fragrant Ethos of Growth, Freedom and Dignity in Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's Purple Hibiscus. But before talking about Purple Hibiscus or even Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, I think it is only fair if I start talking about Commonwealth and the various ramifications of this term, because of which it is often considered a very pejorative term. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines Commonwealth as an association of self-governing autonomous states, more or less loosely associated in a common allegiance as to the British Crown. At present, it is an association of 56 member states, most of which are former territories of the British Empire, although in the recent years, many countries um, have become associated with this Commonwealth Foundation who were not the erstwhile colonies of the British Empire. Now, the problem that I was talking about, as far as this very word Commonwealth is concerned, can very well be identified by these two excerpts that I have included from Afua Hirsch article, What is the Commonwealth, if not the British Empire 2.0? So in the excerpt, in the first excerpt, if you could see that Afua Hirsch and indeed many other critiques and authors likewise think that this Commonwealth is basically it is a vessel of all the former colonies. They have all come together, and in the absence of the void that colonialism had left, this Commonwealth became a medium to fill that void, and it has become Empire 2.0 all over again. And as Britain is the monarchical head of this entire Commonwealth Foundation, Commonwealth is just as a symbol that they are the heads. But even though throughout the years, if we trace the years from which the Commonwealth Foundation was set up, this particular foundation has served very nicely to advocate a Britain's shopping list, which Afua Hirsch describes as liberalized, extractor-friendly regimes, then low corporate tax rates, and a very creative system of tax havens, which are predominantly located in Commonwealth countries. It is not just Afua Hirsch who has a problem with this word Commonwealth. If we would trace the history of the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, uh, in 2001, Amitav Ghosh, the eminent Indian writer, he turned down this Commonwealth Writers' Prize for The Glass Palace in 2001. In his letter to the Commonwealth Foundation, he said that he did not know that his publishers had signed his book, The Glass Palace, for being considered in this prize. So he wrote a letter to the Commonwealth Foundation explaining the problems that he has with this word Commonwealth, and in that as well he echoes what Afua Hirsch had written in her particular article. And he says that if that familiar category, English literature, were to be renamed the literature of the Norman conquest, and that is what Amitav Ghosh and the various writers they associate with this whole Commonwealth Prize. Amitav Ghosh, in his letter, he does not deny that Commonwealth Foundation has done a list of different activities of goodwill and has helped other member nations. But despite that, the arbitrariness of choosing only those books who are majorly coming from an erstwhile colony is something that he does not adhere to. On a very similar level, in Salil Tripathi's article, What is Common About This Prize, he quotes Ramesh Gunasekara, who is a writer of Sri Lankan origin, expressing his concern with the Commonwealth Prize, wherein he presents this analogy that in the Commonwealth Prize, the South Asian countries are clubbed together for the prize. But Ramesh Gunasekara says that as a writer from an island nation of Sri Lanka, he associates more with the writers from Caribbean as they have certain interesting linkages than say from the writers of his neighboring countries such as India and Sri Lanka. So all this, my motive of presenting this excerpts from the various articles that I have shown is to show you that even though the Commonwealth Foundation prizes are recognizing such authors and writers whom we might not have considered had the Commonwealth um, had the Commonwealth not given the prize or put these books or authors in their short list or long list. But despite that, there are certain shortcomings that the foundation is going through, and this is true for most of the prizes that are there today. So coming to my topic, before delving into Purple Hibiscus, I would like to give a very brief introduction of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I have mentioned this particular chapter as Eze Namani of prose. Eze Namani is an Igbo term which is used for queens. And for me, I have always felt that the way that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie writes, she has all my heart, and for me, she is the queen of prose, and for all the right reasons. So Adichie grew up in an Igbo family of educators in the university town of Nsukka, Nigeria, and both her parents were um, part of this university town. They very much lived in the campus, and her mother, Grace Ifeoma, was the university's first female registrar. My intention towards giving the tidbits from Adichie's life is that you will find that this university campus, it plays a major role in most of Adichie's works, and right from the very beginning, she had that kind of growth which is associated when one grows up in a university campus. So it does not come as a surprise. Adichie's major inspirations and influences are Chinua Achebe, and in particular his novel Things Fall Apart, Buchi Emecheta, Kamara Lays, The African Child, and Daughters of Africa, which is an anthology, and it is a compilation of some of the major African women writers, and it is just this book is quite enough to give you an introduction to how the women writers from the African continent were and are writing. So these are some of the books of Adichie. Purple Hibiscus, about which I'll be talking. Half of a Yellow Sun, which is based on the Biafran War that happened in Nigeria from 1967 to 70. Then her collection of short stories, The Thing Around Your Neck, and all these photos that you see on your screen is taken from my Instagram account. And then we have Americana, We Should All Be Feminists, Dear Ijeawale, followed by Notes on Grief, which is a very recent publication of Adichie, and it deals with the grief she went through after the loss of her father during COVID. In particular, her lecture, The Danger of a Single Story, which she had given in 2009, is something that I recommend all of you and suggest all of you to go through, because in not just in Adichie's work, but if you would read Chinua Achebe and all the recent authors that are coming up from Africa, they are all dismantling one or the other stereotypes that are associated with the continent as a whole. Then some of her noteworthy short fictions are Checking Out, Apollo, and Zikora. I'm talking very briefly about all her works because I wanted to focus more upon her views and opinions, which, just like the author, is iconic in itself. Needless to say, Adichie is considered as a feminist role model, and in her essay, We Should All Be Feminist, which is also available as a TED Talk, she said that not just in Nigeria or in Africa, but throughout the world, girls all around are taught to shrink themselves, to make themselves smaller, so that men in their lives or men around them, they do not feel intimidated or they do not feel threatened by their ambitions. And this she considers as a very wrong teaching for a little girl in particular. And you will find that many of the authors and writers, they do not like labels, and Adichie also does not like labels because she considers herself as a storyteller. But whenever someone calls her a feminist writer, she does not mind because she thinks that feminism shapes her work. work, it shapes the worldview that she has, and that is why whenever someone calls her a feminist writer or a feminist storyteller, she considers she does not get offended, or she does not mind this particular phrase at all. On her religious faith, Adichie says that religion around the world is not a very women-friendly institution, and time and again she has repeatedly called herself an agnostic. But when her daughter was born, she baptized her as a Catholic, so that her daughter has that option of faith, because as a mother, um, Adichie's belief upon religion is her personal belief, and as a mother, she does not want to influence her daughter in any way. That is why she gave her the option of faith, even though she herself considered as a non-believer. So perhaps the most controversial of all of Adichie's opinion is that on LGBT rights. Before talking about the controversy that is associated with Adichie, there is a very important article that she had written, wherein after in Nigeria, when homosexuality was criminalized, in her article, she writes that homosexuality cannot be considered a crime, because in all the crimes, the characteristic traits of a crime is that a crime has victims and a crime harms society. But when two consensual adults decide to come together, they are neither committing any crime nor are there any victims. It is love because of which they are coming together, and love has never harmed this society. So criminalizing homosexuality in itself is an act of crime rather than homosexuality being a crime. So this analogy, I think, is very perfect, particularly in today's day and age, where throughout the world we have seen crimes against homosexuality and countries uh, banning and considering homosexuality as a crime. But the controversy arose when J.K. Rowling came up with her essay and repeatedly viewed trans women as predatory men who would enter into women's washroom in order to invade their private spaces. And Adichie supporting J.K. Rowling, um, uh, when Adichie decided to support J.K. Rowling and calling her opinions as something very logical, uh, authors and LGBT activists and queer people around the world, they criticized Adichie greatly. And amongst the list of this backlashes that came, is the most prominent one, I feel, is Akwegi Emezi, who is a wonderful writer. And I would suggest that you pick anything by Akwegi Emezi and you would end up falling in love with their book. So in her tweet, Akwegi Emezi says that JK are viewing trans women as predatory men, and Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie finding that progressive and perfectly reasonable is something that something that they as a queer person consider transphobic as well. So if someone is calling J.K. Rowling as a queer person, or as calling J.K. Rowling as a transphobe, and Adichie is supporting Rowling, so that in itself is making Adichie a transphobe as well. Now coming to the politics of color, Adichie has been noted throughout her right from the beginning of her writing career. She has been seen supporting uh, a very daring kind of dress, if I may say, because in Western fashion, those bold and those bright colors are considered as bold or daring or loud, and black is often considered as a hallmark of sophistication, as Adichie herself said. But she feels that the color of clothes, just like the color of the skin, is very highly politicized, and she breaks that stereotype as well and writes that for a dark skinned person, blue might be a better black, or brighter colors can be considered more ordinary for them than daring. So coming to Purple Hibiscus, it is one of my all-time favorites book. It was published in 2003. In 2005, it won the Commonwealth Best First Book, not just in Africa, but it also won uh, overall. So the setting of this particular book is Adichie's native country, Nigeria. And when in the era in which this particular book is set, the country is on the cusp of a radical change, how I will be talking about later in my presentation. And just like Adichie's lecture on the danger of a single story, in this book as well, we see that she is providing multiple perspectives of Nigeria. It can be considered as a Bildungsroman or a coming of age story, and it begins on Palm Sunday in Enugu state. So before diving into the book, I would like to give a very brief overview of Nigeria as a country. In the map, you can see where Nigeria is located in the African continent. And on 1st October 1960, Nigeria gained independence from the British rule. There are many ethnic and cultural groups in Nigeria, because of which even to this day there is a large number of ethnic strife. Particularly after independence, there was a series of military coups that occurred, and from 1966 to 1977, then again from 1983 to 1999. In particular, it is a period of great political unrest in Nigeria. And the Igbo community to which Adichie belongs, um, and it is the community on which this particular book, Purple Hibiscus, is also focusing upon, since the author herself is coming from this community, is one of the largest ethnic groups in Nigeria. So with this very brief description of Nigeria's politics, I will move into the book. So as the book begins, you can see on your screen, it begins with things started to fall apart at home when my brother Jaja did not go to communion and Papa flung his heavy missile across the room. So things started to fall apart. It brings to my mind how Achebe is Adichie's greatest influence and greatest inspiration. And throughout the book, you will find that what Chinua Achebe has done in Things Fall Apart, by showing the effects of Western missionaries on Igbo land. The same thing you can see in Purple Hibiscus as well. But whereas Chinua Achebe's book Things Fall Apart um, is set when this whole concept of Christianity is coming to what we now know as Nigeria. This particular book, Purple Hibiscus, it is set in this particular era from 1980 to 1985. So you see that there is a huge time gap. But what Achebe is talking about in Things Fall Apart, and what Adichie is writing about in Purple Hibiscus, is something common that you can find in both these books. So there is a quasi-religious discourse that was there in Things Fall Apart, and that you would find in Purple Hibiscus as well, which is quite evident from the titles of these sections. It does not just have gods, but it has spirits as well. So that is how there is an amalgamation of this institutionalized religion, and it is combining that with the traditional beliefs that the Igbo community has. So to introduce the characters from this book, we have Eugene Achike, or Papa, who is married to Beatrice Achike, or Mama. Mama is a very silent spectator, and she is a victim of domestic violence. Whereas Papa is a wealthy businessman, he is a very strict Catholic, he is the patriarch of the house. But despite all this, despite all his conventional ideologies as far as religion is concerned, he has very unconventional ideologies, which is evident in the paper that he is sponsoring, or he is writing, or he is helping to grow, which is the Standard, and it criticizes these military coups and the military leaders who are coming one after another in Nigeria. Papa and Mama they have two children. Jaja, and Kambili. Kambili is our narrator, and Kambili in Igbo uh, translates to "May I live." So I um, I talked about patriarchy being there in Purple Hibiscus, and in this photo that is there on your screen, it connects with that opening line of Purple Hibiscus that we just saw, where Papa is throwing the book on Jaja because he did not go to the communion. So Papa is a huge patriarch, and his conventional patriarchal ideologies can be seen throughout the book. Another important book that deals with this patriarchy in Nigeria as a whole, is The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wife, wherein she talks about how a week after a male senator slapped a female colleague, what happens is that throughout the country, one after another, men started slapping women folk, and it became a national sport for them. So both these books, they are dealing with patriarchy, and although patriarchy became a very important issue in Nigeria before the arrival of British forces, the British colonial forces in Ifi Amadiome's book, Male Daughters, Female Husbands, it talks about how this Igbo community had a very flexible gender system, and it encouraged such institutions such as female husband and male daughter, which meant that certain women would occupy roles and positions that we consider traditionally to be associated with men. So patriarchy is one of the key aspects of Purple Hibiscus, and it is seen throughout the novel. Now, Ifeoma is Papa's sister, and she is a uh, she is quite opposite from what Papa is. Ifeoma is a professor at the University of Nigeria, and although uh, both Ifeoma and Papa are siblings, they are quite different from each other. And when Kambili and Jaja they go to spend their time with Auntie Ifeoma, they witness a world which is far apart from each other. So this very title, Purple Hibiscus, um, the purple hibiscus was a hybridized flower. It was brought from Auntie Ifeoma's house to Papa's house, and in the book, it is um, it is shown as a rarity or a sign of peace and hope and of freedom. If you would look at the second excerpt that is there on your screen, this experimental purple hibiscus, which was rare, fragrant with the undertones of freedom. It speaks of freedom because in Auntie Ifeoma's house, both Jaja and Kambili, they came across this concept of freedom, this concept of individuality in Auntie Ifeoma's house. Whereas if you would look at the red hibiscus, um, in the first excerpt, these red hibiscus, they did not take much time to grow because it was very natural, and blood shed, violence and abuse, it is seen somewhat as a spontaneous reaction rather than if you would compare it with freedom and with dignity, it takes time. So that is the stark contrast that is there with the color purple and then the color red. Religion also is one of the important aspect of this book. Father Benedict belongs to belongs to the church that Papa goes, and he is considered as our new priest because he was a Western missionary who had a Western priest who had come to live in Nigeria, and he deemed Igbo as not acceptable. So just like Papa's strict ideologies as far as Catholicism is concerned, Father Benedict is also someone who is very rigid in what he thinks. Whereas on the other hand, in the book we have Father Amadi, who initially Kambili feels that it is very sacrilegious to call him a father because he looks very much like her and the other black men that are around her. So these are both Father Benedict and Father Amadi are quite different from each other. And then Papa Nanukwu, who is uh, Kambili's grandfather and Papa's Papa, he is considered as a godless father because he chose not to become Catholic. And Papa Nanuku's house is called the home of the heathen because he did not accept Catholicism just like his son. Some more important aspects from this book is the lipstick that Auntie Ifyoma and her daughter wore, whereas Kambili got fascinated with this red lipstick and the bright colored lipstick that her auntie and her daughter wore, whereas Mama is where her own mother is not wearing any lipstick, which shows the lack of individuality that is there at Papa's house. And the figurines also play a very important role, and it is associated with Mama throughout the book because figurines, as we know, are very delicate. They are very soft and suppressed, just like Mama, because of the domestic abuse that she goes through throughout the novel, and she goes through all of that very silently. Another important aspect of this novel is the palm leaf, which is sacred both in Christianity and in Igbo tradition. And in both the religion, in Christianity and Igbo tradition, it is a symbol of victory, triumph, peace, and eternal life, and it plays a very important role because what Papa is considering as as the heathen is also using the palm leaves or the palm oil or palm wine for themselves. And even as a Catholic, Papa is using this palm leaves in the church. So I would like to end this presentation by looking at some of the common themes that are there in Purple Hibiscus: familial and romantic love, this love that is there between Papa and Kambili, and what Mama is feeling for her own children in order to save them from the atrocities that Papa is bringing them into, and the romantic love that Kambili slowly gets to know throughout the novel. Then the representation of women, the issue of patriarchy that I was talking about, is very much present in the poem. Appearance and reality, it more or less connects with Papa, who is considered as someone very uh, powerful outside his home. He is being revered for his actions because he constantly helps other people. But in his own house, he is dreaded, and his own children is scared of him. The search for identity that Kambili, Jaja, and even Mama is going through. Freedom versus bondage that is there in Auntie Ifyoma's house, and the bondage that is there in Papa's house. The voice versus voicelessness, the problematic relationships, and of course, I cannot not talk about the politics of Nigeria that we see throughout the novel. So this was all from my side. Thank you so much for listening so patiently.
Thank you, Monica. That was a great and insightful presentation.
Thank you
Today
so
we
much.
have Dr. Aparna Srinivas ma'am respond to the presenters and give her keynote address. As you all know, Dr. Aparna Srinivas, a well-known face for everyone here in this group. She is the director of Emerald of Learning. Ma'am had been the chairperson and also a speaker for many of our in tandem research meets. We are very well aware of her knowledge, expertise, and experience in English language and literature and other areas such as philosophy, etc. She has regularly been conducting various workshops and seminars through Emerald of Learning. She has specifically been conducting reading sessions for poetry in the name Masala Chai Mandarins. It's a pleasure that ma'am has accepted our invitation to be the keynote speaker for this session. Ma'am, I request you to respond to the presenters and give your keynote speech. Please take over, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you everyone for having me here, and thank you both the paper presenters. Um, Monica, your paper was quite in exhaustive and in depth, and I think you have gotten under the skin of both Adichie and Nigeria. I do have a few uh, responses, or let's say, I don't know, a way mm, of uh, of keeping it together, let's say, because there is a lot of work that you have uh, done in your paper, a lot of details, a lot of history, but I feel you have to work on bringing out the core, um, and I do think that you are looking at uh, the treatment of gender and maybe the institution of patriarchy. Uh, but I also think that you should try and look at um, how does the, I know you spoke about history, I know you spoke about the politics of Nigeria, but how does the family as a unit interact with that concept of the nation of Nigeria? I think if you are able to do that, it will add a lot of value to the work that you have already done. And I think you can also uh, question the concept of patriarchy. We know from your presentation that uh, mama or the daughters, they have a certain way of life which we feel is influenced by patriarchy. But on the other hand, we also have the aunt, okay, who um, does, I don't think gender really matters to that aunt. She just does what she wants. I don't think she thinks about whether she's a woman or a man, or whether she's free or not free. She just follows her passion, from what I understand. So I think you can also question and not just use like the normal notions of patriarchy, but actually question that concept and and uh, analyze it, and not keep it like so simple, like uh, the mother and the daughter and all. And again, in the context of the history of Nigeria, what how does this concept play out? And you yourself said that that they are traditionally they are sliding identities, uh, man, woman, role plays, that. So you can, I feel you should examine that aspect more, this sliding of gender roles, rather than sticking to received notions of patriarchy. That is my response to your paper, and if you're able to do that, there'll be a lot more depth to your work. And what is the other presenter's name? I'm sorry, I have forgotten. Can someone please help me with that?
Ma'am, Sanjana Singh.
Yeah. So yeah, so that was a good overall view of Rohinton Mistry. Again, uh, maybe it's the kind of background I come from or whatever. I too, I felt that similarly, like I said for Monika, though very different. How does the family unit interact with India as a nation state, a newly independent nation state? And also, I also felt that Rohinton Mistry comes from a Parsi community. So how does that identity? So there are three kind of layers. One is the Indian nation. Next is like the Indian family, and in that there is like a Parsi family, because some of the things, in fact most of the things that he does talk about, you will not I mean, you may find it, you may not find it, but they are very typically to do with Parsi families, their history in India, their history in Bombay, and their kind of lifestyle. And so you may want to examine that a little more. And I don't know. I mean, you both have presented your papers here under the rubric of the Commonwealth, Writers' Prize. But I don't know what the focus of your work is otherwise outside of this forum, because if your focus is about the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, then there also has to be, it was two different units, the Commonwealth Prize, and then, okay, he's won it, and he or she has won it, and then the work. But then there has to be some interaction about what is the meaning of that work having won the Commonwealth Prize, and why is that important? Not why is that, is it important, is it not important, to be able to place it within that context of the Commonwealth Prize, because that interaction was not there. And I thought maybe perhaps because that is not the focus of your research, and you present and you just were presenting it here, and so therefore you just brought in a little bit of Commonwealth literature. But if you're going to pursue it under that label, then that connection has to be there. So those are my responses to both of you. And yes, thank you very much for giving, I think between the two of you, given a very comprehensive introduction to the Commonwealth literature, to the Commonwealth Writers' Prize. And also, Monika, thank you for mentioning the foundation that supported the prize for a couple of years till they changed the format. So Preeti, what should I go on to my presentation, or do other people have questions? What is it?
Move on to your presentation.
Okay, so some of the things may be a bit of a repeat, because Monika and Sanjana have already covered it, but maybe we'll just go through those parts quickly. So I too will present my screen, and please tell me whether I am. Okay, so can you guys, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so the Commonwealth Writers' Prize. Today we have we live in a world where there's a proliferation of awards, of recognition from everything, in every sphere of life, from dance, music, writing, and poetry. Nowadays online poetry has become so popular, and open mic sessions. So everybody is winning some prize or the other in whatever they do. It may be painting, it may be of course there are again there is a hierarchy there. Some prizes are respected more or more prestigious, and some prizes are not so prestigious, not so well known. And so we live in this world where we seem to require some kind of cultural recognition, some kind of legitimization of our own tastes, of what we like to hear, what we like to listen to, uh, and uh, uh, and so also with fiction we have so many prizes. I did speak earlier about the Booker Prize, and in this forum itself, people have spoken about the Jnanpith Award, the Sahitya Academy, and today we are talking about the Commonwealth Writers Prize. So what is the point of this prize, or what is the point of prizes? Prizes, of course, is to shine the spotlight on a certain work, on certain qualities of certain works, perhaps to make it more visible, to draw attention, maybe also to make people's lives richer by trying to read them, or focus on them, or to interact with a piece of art. It could be like a film, it could be whatever it is. So this is one of the roles that a prize plays. One is for the audience, and the other is also, it also could serve as some kind of a motivating factor for people to bring out the best in them. A little bit like those in kindergarten. Oh, I'll give you 3 stars. You got all 10 dictations correct. Something like that. I'm putting it very simplistically. But yes, it could also serve as some kind of encouragement for uh, writers or people with skill to showcase their talent. So, so that is the role of prizes. Of course, it has been problematized. They talk about sponsorship, they talk about cultural capital, and who benefits from this, and it all usually boils down to money, to economics, to marketing, and to higher sales of the person who is of the entity that is sponsoring the prize, or a sports event. So anyway, I mean that is a really broad sort of entry point into prizes. I shall work my way into the Commonwealth Writers Prize. And so first of all, what is this? Just to give a brief overview of the award, there were this award. Most awards go through certain changes, certain avatars, mostly because of the funding uh, problems with not problems, as let's say they have challenges in finding the funds to keep on funding the prize for many years. And so too with the Commonwealth Writers Award, it was given from 1987 to 2011, and it was the successor to the Commonwealth Poetry Award. They also concurrently gave the best first book between 1989 and 2011. And from 2012, it has been called the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, and is given annually to a piece of unpublished short fiction. But they were also giving the Commonwealth Short Story Prize for a number of years parallelly. I haven't put that down here. But right now, today, we have only the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, and every year it has been awarded to different writers from different regions. And those regions, this thing, Monica had very helpfully put out all those regions, Asia, Southeast Asia and Pacific, Africa, Canada and the Caribbean region, Africa, Europe, and South Asia. And she also mentioned about the jury, that each region has its regional it's regional jury, and then there's a overall that they choose the overall winner from the regional winners, and the chairperson from each of these, they form the jury for the overall prize. Okay, so now we come to, so what is this 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 Commonwealth? What is this Commonwealth Foundation, and why does it exist, and what's its role today? Which I want to enter into this conversation about the Commonwealth with though Arvind Adiga is, I don't, maybe he was nominated for the Commonwealth Award. I don't know. I don't remember. He's definitely a Booker Prize winner. And the concerns of the Booker Prize winning novels and some of the novels that have won the Commonwealth Writers Prize, they do overlap. And there is a major difference, though, which I will come to later. So in Arvind Adiga's novel, The White Tiger, the novel is a set of letters written by Balram Halwai to this Chinese premier Wen Jiabo. And he says, neither you or I speak English, but there are some things that can only be said in English. And I think that line, neither you or I speak English, but there are some things that can only be said in English, sums up the sentiment behind the Commonwealth pretty succinctly, and the sentiment behind the Commonwealth Writers' Prize. Okay, so that ties it up to the British Empire. It ties it up to colonialism, and the reason why we use English. Why am I speaking in English? And even this institution that is hosting today's this research club, Queen Mary's College, they are all the legacies of that colonial history that India has been through. And not just India, many nations in the world have been through that colonial history. Now, there is an interesting corollary to this. So while the colonizer, which is Britain in this case, was common to all of them, yet and therefore they imposed English on all their colonies, yet the response to that English has been varied, and it has been different. There is a variety in that response, and this is because each region in the world had a different geography, had a different culture, had a different language, and the English was the flattening or uniformity or making it uniform that was imposed on all these regions. And this interaction between different histories, cultures, geographies, weathers, climatic condition, in interacting with the English culture, we have, like Bill Ashcroft says, we have different Englishes all over the world. And this English, behind every English, you can always hear the twang of the local language. And you see it in Achebe, you see it in Adichie. There's always, they use Igbo words in their writing. In Kenya, you will see Gugi using Swahili terms in his writing. In India, of course, Salman Rushdie, the master of using Chutney language, or Mumbaiya in his work, make it all unique. So while we do talk about it through English, yet each region interacts or has responded to these to the English language in a very unique way, depending on their history and their culture. And the fight for freedom or the independence movements in each of these regions have also followed different trajectories, different strategies, and the result has been different. We see India was the first country to gain independence from Britain in 1947, and the rest of the through the 60s, several African countries got their independence. And we saw what happened in South Africa. Though they gained independence from Britain, apartheid continued, and it's only in the 1990s that apartheid was lifted, and South Africa has a different political situation today. So, which again brings me back to this word Commonwealth. This Commonwealth of Nations had its beginnings in the erstwhile colonies of Britain. It was used for the first time in 1926 when Australia, Canada, India, and one or two other regions came together. Canada and Australia were known as were called dominions, and India was the a colony of Britain, but India had its own sort of presence, independent presence in that Commonwealth of Nations, and they met together, and that name or that term was used for the first time in 1926. Later, after 1947, when India got independent, they continued to use that same term, Commonwealth. They didn't call it Commonwealth of Nations. They just called it the Commonwealth. And it was established formally in 1949. And King George VI was the first head, and the Queen Elizabeth II took his place when she became queen. However, the head of the Commonwealth is chosen by member countries. So the Commonwealth, it became a way of keeping together the former colonies of Britain, or let's say, I won't say keeping together, as a way of building some kind of a relationship between the colonies of amongst themselves and also with Britain. Now, Britain was no longer the colonizer, and so they were in this Commonwealth together on equal footing. Though, of course, we know in actual terms, to begin with, it was an unequal kind of a relationship, because all the economy was still controlled at that time by European countries and by America. Today, to begin with, it was the former colonies of Britain that were part of the Commonwealth, but the notion or the idea of the Commonwealth has changed, and countries such as Rwanda, Mozambique, Gabon, and Togo are the latest members of this group, and they were not part of the British Empire. Today, it consists of 56 countries that are part of this. Some of them are island countries in the Pacific Ocean area, and for them, this grouping and this ability to interact with other nations through the rubric of the Commonwealth is important. And so what is the relevance of this Commonwealth today? It's questionable, because we've seen what has happened in Britain today. We saw that Rishi Sunak became a very, very serious contender for the post of the Prime Minister of Britain. And we've also seen with Brexit, UK's position and UK's economy is not as robust as it used to be. And in some spheres, with its relationship with UK, India can call some shots. And also with the war between Ukraine and Russia, we see that old relationships and old positioning of powerful, not powerful countries is all changing, and it's all becoming very fluid. So how long the Commonwealth will remain useful is left to be seen. However, one thing is for sure is that the English language is so prolific and it's so ubiquitous that at least because of that English language, the Commonwealth Foundation may continue to exist. I will also tell you that it is a pretty serious organization. Um, yeah, so it is what kind of an organization it is. We have the Commonwealth Games. Of course, though cricket is not, part of the Commonwealth Foundation's um, function, yet we know that cricket has also been like a binding force, like the English language, amongst the colonies of Britain, and I'm not going to go into that, but we understand how cricket, even in the sphere of sport, and in cricket, the tables are turning, and the best cricket teams are the former colonies of Britain and not Britain really today. It is a quasi-government organization. They have a official structure. They work through local governments. And what do they work for? They work for human rights. They work for trying to help keep a democracy alive. Many times they have, expelled Pakistan, brought back Pakistan. Nigeria was expelled because of uh, their record on democracy and human rights. So they do try to act like some kind of conscience keeper. There are cultural exchanges. There is a forum for art and craft, and also for writing, as this presentation is about. So this is something about the format of the Commonwealth Writers Award. I think we've already gone through this in the other paper presentation, so I'm not going to focus much on this. This is the judging process. Again, this has been gone through. Okay, so again with the Queens, we are one of the most contemporary events that we are experiencing today is the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and now Charles will take over as King of Britain and of the United Kingdom, so to say. Here, when I say United Kingdom, it means Wales, Scotland, England, and of course Northern Ireland. Which brings to my mind an interesting aspect of the Commonwealth Foundation is Commonwealth of Nations is that this grouping of nations, Ireland is not a part of the Commonwealth, and that is one major difference in this Writers Award between this award and the Booker Award, because Booker considers citizens of Ireland also as part of the Commonwealth or the former British Empire, whereas the Commonwealth Writers Award does not consider Ireland for its prize. Queen Elizabeth II, she was the first sort of convener of the Commonwealth Foundation, Commonwealth grouping of nations. And now with her death, there's a lot of debate about the role that the Commonwealth will play, whether it's necessary, or whether it will just crumble and fall away. In this context of colonization, like post-colonial situation, a post-colonial situation, and in a world where there's a war raging between Ukraine and Russia, and shows there doesn't seem to be any end to that war. It was very interesting for me. In fact, I think somebody from Queen Mary's college only had this letter on her status from the economic. This letter written by this economic freedom fighters. It is a political party of South Africa, where they said they very loudly articulated that we are not unhappy that the Queen died. What is to feel sad, because her family has been the cause of so much pain and suffering throughout the world, and her family and the nation of which she being the head represented uh, uh, were implicated in slavery, in colonization, in subjugating three-fourths of the world. And so therefore we do not uh, express any grief over her or passing away. So it is this goes to show that we have a very problematic relationship with Britain, our former colonizers. But at the same time, we should also remember that Prime Minister Narendra Modi dutifully expressed his grief over the passing away of the Queen. So we live in this. We have to thread a fine line between, while he expressed his grief over the Queen's death at the on the Independence Day speech, he said we should stop having a colonial mindset. So we live this state of paradox, where on the one hand we are compelled to be polite and to follow certain protocols and to express formally certain feelings of grief over the death of the Queen, and but at the same time we should also remind ourselves that it's time for us to move on from certain types of hegemonic or tendencies where we tend to think of ourselves as inferior. uh, so this Commonwealth, it was I'm repeating myself, but it is basically the former colonies of Britain that came together to find a way of relating to each other and to Britain as equals, and to also help out civic societies with and that's the other thing about this Commonwealth. They do not do trade agreements. They do not do bilateral agreements. It is purely kind of a cultural institutions where there is knowledge sharing, there is technical knowledge sharing. They do collaborate for education. They do collaborate for like during the pandemic, there was some kind of give and take, some sharing of information. All those things do take place, and it is quite formal in that sense, that they do work with each other's government, and there are people assigned or designated to liaise with the Commonwealth Foundation on behalf of governments. And they have a formal structure where right now, if you go to the Commonwealth Foundation page, some Patricia, somebody who is the she is the chairperson of the Commonwealth Foundation. So they do have like a formal what should I say, governing or administrators who take care of the work of the Commonwealth Foundation. So these are some of the winners. So I've mixed up both the people who have won the award and the people who first book who won the best first book, like Adichie. Actually, these last four are the people who won the first best first book when it was being awarded the Commonwealth Writers Prize for the best first book. Any award always has some controversy. One of the presenters already mentioned that Amitav Ghosh withdrew his novel The Glass Palace for consideration from the prize, and in an open letter he said that I don't believe in this word, the Commonwealth. As I have been talking about it already, I'll repeat myself and say there was nothing common about the Commonwealth, because each place is unique, has a unique history, has a unique trajectory for independence, and so therefore he felt very uncomfortable with his book being nominated for the Commonwealth Award. He withdrew the prize, withdrew the novel from being considered for the prize. He also said that the Commonwealth Award put an unnecessary emphasis on the language English, when we know that each of these regions had a rich and thriving regional language, which people still speak, still use, and yet we try to give more importance to English, and he felt that it was not right, and therefore he did not want to be part of it. And he said that the Glass Palace, now all these writers that are here in this list here, all of them, in one way or the other, they rewrite history from their point of view, from the colonized point of view about their region, Amitav Ghosh also does that in the Glass Palace, where he looks at the role of Subhash Chandra Bose and the Japanese army in Singapore, in Burma, and so he felt that since his agenda of rewriting history does not fit with the agenda of the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, he said he did not want it, or not with the agenda. Let me not call it the agenda, with the spirit that went behind the formation of the Commonwealth of Nations. He felt that he did not want his book to be part of this. Again, it's a paradox, because, like I said, all these writers, all of them have given their perspective of the place of their nation in the world, through English, of course, but from the perspective of the colonized. All of them have rewritten history from the or retold, rewritten, given a new take on certain incidents of their Adichie, for instance. Even the a Biafran civil war, she gives her own sort of take on it. Ben Okri does it in his own way. Coetzee comments on the apartheid, on the almost schizophrenic kind of atmosphere that exists in South Africa even today. Atwood talks about in a very roundabout way the legacy of colonialism on Canada, on the Native Canadian people, and how do the Native Canadian people interact with the white people. What is the legacy of that on the psyche of the white people today? So she is a very complex writer, and all those undertones can be seen in her writing. I've already. He also said that his novel represented a way of remembering the past, which could be seen as opposite to that of the spirit of the Commonwealth, and therefore did not want to be part of it. So this, his rejection, the fact that he did not want to be considered for the Commonwealth Writers Award, we have to see it in another perspective also. Both Margaret Atwood and Amitav Ghosh were, I'm straying a little away from the main topic of Commonwealth Writers Award, but this is just to place the award in context, and how do we understand the cultural importance of these awards? How do writers respond to it? What do we understand from these debates? This is the idea behind this. So both Margaret Atwood and Amitav Ghosh were awarded the Dan David Prize for Literature. This prize is awarded by Tel Aviv University and a private foundation. Both the authors were asked to decline the prize because they felt that Israel was committing so many human rights violations in the Gaza Strip, on the West Bank, and they were not they were constantly provoking Palestine unnecessarily. And so they felt, the public at large felt that both Ghosh and Atwood should decline the prices. But both of them, in public statements, condemned the action of Israel, but they said that we are not declining the price. We do not condone Israel, but at the same time, we will go ahead and accept the prize because it is not being awarded by a state, and it is a university that is awarding it. And just because I accept an award by coming from the state of Israel, it doesn't mean that I'm implicated in the actions of Israel. And Ghosh also insisted that it was the academic community that was at the forefront of any uh, peacemaking moves as far as Israel and Palestine was concerned. And Atwood had a very interesting take on this. She said, why are you all worried about me accepting the prize or being implicated in the actions of Israel? You should all be worried about that the Red Sea is going to dry up. That whole area is being impacted by climate change. You should be worried about that. You should not be worried. Those are real things. Those are real things which will affect your day-to-day lives, which will affect the lives of the people who are living in that region. And you should not be really be worried about whether the moral ground of me accepting or not accepting the prize. And she also said that this mm, um, that one could not boycott a cultural item, and books were the only way of accessing events as they unfolded and the only way of experiencing another human being's thoughts. And that is exactly what the value of the Booker Prize and the Commonwealth Writers Prize is, that they did they provided the means through which one could understand events as they unfolded in a different region, in a different political climate, in a different geographical context, in a different history, through the voices of those people who were experiencing them in real time, like Adichie, like Benokri, like the people of Sri Lanka, like Rohinton Mistry, where he did speak about the emergency and how he doesn't talk of it directly, but you can feel the oppressive nature of the state, and what happens to the family in those circumstances. How does the family react? Is the state overreaching itself? What is the place of Indira Gandhi, and what were people thinking about Indira Gandhi? How did they respond to that? These are all insights that we get. uh, we don't get those kind of emotional insights or emotional responses to political events through to national upheavals through a history textbook or through a newspaper clipping, but you do get it through fiction. And it is in this aspect that the Commonwealth Writers Award, that the Booker Prize, they are important. It allows us to enter into a different realm, into a different mindset, into a different geography, into a different way of seeing a certain event. And that's why they are important. Now, there is, of course, the politics of language, the politics of patronage, the politics of where the money is coming from, of cultural capital, who is having the upper hand, who is having the lower hand, all that is very much there, and it is part of this whole system. It is part of the way money capital travels from one region to the other, how it gets you know uh, converted into sometimes maybe guns, sometimes maybe a sport, sometimes maybe books. All that is a part, but do these books do give us a very important insight into human lives other than ourselves, and the Commonwealth Writers' Prize and the Booker Prize and other prizes give us that opportunity, that window into looking at different events. Now I'm here, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to all of you. How will I access other things? It's only through books. And these awards throw the spotlight on some of the better books. I'm sure there are books that have not won the award and perhaps are equally good, and we may never come to know of them. That is all part of the politics of it. But at least these books we know, at least these books we read, and these books we try to understand, and therefore understand other people and other perspectives. In spite of the many misgivings that many people have with the notion of the Commonwealth, it continues to remain a significant organization, especially for the smaller nation. This For us as literature students who work in the area of post-colonial studies, the Commonwealth Foundation is quite important because it is officially associated with the Association of Commonwealth Literature and Languages, A class that I'm talking about. This is the full form. Association for the Study of Commonwealth Literature and Language. And before we use the term post-colonialism or post-colonial fiction, it was all called Commonwealth literature. Achape was a Derek Walcott. They were all R.K. Narayan. They were all called Raja Rao. They were all called authors of Commonwealth literature. And so therefore, this word Commonwealth literature was a precursor to post-colonial fiction. It actually created the space and paved the way for the way we do read fiction today, for the place of fiction coming from these former colonies. Today we are talking about former colonies of Britain, but then it can also some of the terms and concepts that we use in post-colonialism today have been borrowed from responses of Hispanic or South American critics to Spanish colonization, of Algerians to French colonization, and they have borrowed these terms and used it in their own analysis to come up with a framework to understand post-colonial fiction, post-colonial history, post-colonial society, and what we are all going through today, or in a post-colonial world. Okay, I just end on a little humorous note, and I say, literary labels are like buses. There's always another one coming. So I say that because today we are past post-colonial fiction. We are into, memory studies, into digital humanities, post-truth, whatever the label may be, human condition, human crime, human grief, still human death, still remain common, are still the same, and do not change. Though, of course, the way we create war, the technology with which we create war, or the technology through which we disseminate information through the internet, that may have changed, but the actual human emotion still remains the same. And there is no, it may be amplified, the texture of it may be different, but we still go through grief, we still go through pain, we still go through disease, we still go through death. We are happy, we are joyful, we feel the sun, the rain, the wind, all that. Some things are basic. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Um, any questions? Any responses? Responses.
Yeah, responses, Aparna, once again, thank you for giving us the greater insights into these prizes. Normally, we don't go into all these. So, I mean, especially the politics of all these. So, it was a very, it was a long day, but yet I think it, you gave us a lot of insight into this Commonwealth Prize. And who do you think is the? I mean, will the queen be chosen? I mean, will the king become the next Commonwealth head? Yes, yes, naturally, or will there be some? I didn't know that there is a group choosing him for this.
I think they will all unanimously choose. It's easy, to do that.
Yes, it's easier to do that, but then how long this kind of system will last? We are still after Queen Elizabeth. We are still wondering.
We'll have to wait and watch. Yes.
Yes, wait. Thank
So
you.
it's been a long thing. Actually, this is probably
Yeah,
stuff for
Monika Rani and
conference.
Sanjana, I think I've written a comment for both of you. You've done a wonderful, commentable presentation, especially Monika Rani's incorporated many facets about the, prize also. So it was a deeper, in-depth presentation. Thank you, both of you.
Today's session was material for a conference, I think.
Yes.
So congratulations to both the presenters, Monika and Sanjana. We learned a lot from you. And thank you, Shreya, for arranging these scholars. And this, because I think this is your first time for a full-length session with us, we'd like to hear from you, Shreya.
Thank you.
Aparna, please meet Shreya. I think you're meeting for the first time. Yeah.
Well, it has been a pleasure being associated with Dr. Maria and with In Tandem. I mean, it's the first time that I have been asked to mentor an entire research club. But I must say that I'm really enjoying the sessions. And I really think that Dr. Maria and Queen Mary's is creating a wonderful platform for budding scholars to come up with their own ideas, their own, in-depth research work. So, I'm happy to be associated with it, and I'm glad that two of my scholars presented today. And I hope that in the future we will also have many interesting sessions. In fact, Maria and I, we have a few things up our sleeves, which we could maybe add a different taste to the in tandem sessions. As far as today's this session on Commonwealth prizes was concerned, there are a couple of things which came to my mind. The first thing, of course, since we have been talking about Africa and Adichie and Achebe, so the first thing that comes to my mind is um, what Achebe, as a very clear-sighted writer, always said, that is, we cannot negate our shared history. So no matter how we look at it today, the fact remains that, you know, uh, colonization was a reality, and at one point of time, 8% of the globe's, uh, 8% of the globe had colonized 80% of the globe. So that shared history cannot be negated. It can be discussed, it can be debated, but it cannot be negated. That is one point, which I think gives relevance to this prize. The second thing, as Dr. Srinivas very rightly said, the the point is that this kind of a prize, it gives a visibility to certain texts which otherwise perhaps wouldn't have been read by a vast majority of readers who are reading them now. So I think that is a very important thing, and you know it makes a lot of difference to have read such writers. The the third thing, which I also think is very important and which Dr. Srinivas touched upon, is about this whole discourse of Commonwealth becoming post-colonial and then going on to becoming a whole stream of post-colonial theories and studies, right from Said to Bhabha to Gayatri Spivak, and those who are writing now. There is a whole space that has been created for debate and discussion. One is free to agree, one is free to disagree, but the point is the space has been created and it is an important space. And the fourth and the final thing is all this debate about nomenclatures and terminologies. And I personally have a huge problem with this post concepts, post truth and post this and post that, because the problem ultimately is that, are we talking about human concerns? And if we are talking about human concerns, then why are we not talking about the exploitative structures which are so deep rooted in every society, and which continue to remain, only the terminologies and the vocabularies around them change. So I always tell my students to think along these lines, that instead of a post whatever, why don't we think of a post exploitative era, where there would be more concern for the what is genuinely humane, for kind of creating a more egalitarian and a fairer and maybe a juster world order. This is why how I look at things. And of course, as I said, that this kind this kind of a prize, it gives us the space to debate these issues, and that is why I think there is still certain relevance to it. So I'm glad, as I said, to be associated with In Tandem, and it has been a pleasure listening to you, Dr. Srinivas, and to be associated with you today. And thank you, Maria, for taking all the effort as always. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I thank Dr. Aparna Srinivas for her extensive insight into the Commonwealth prizes. And also I take this moment to thank Professor Shreya from Central University of Jharkhand for arranging the presenters for today's session. And we have come to the end of the session. Let's wrap up the session with a thank you note. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Uma Maheshwari, for rendering her support and guidance for all the endeavors of the department. I thank Dr. Madhya Preeti Srinivasan, Head and Associate Professor of English, and all the faculty members of the Department of English, Queen Mary's College, for their contribution to this research meet. My special thanks to the patron of the club, Dr. Rufus sir and Dr. Srilata ma'am, for their presence and guidance in shaping these sessions. I express my gratitude to Aparna Srinivas ma'am, Director, Emerald of Learning, for her contribution for today's session and her keynote address as well. And I thank Professor Shreya and the presenters who have made the day with their great presentations. My final word of thanks to all the participants and members of this research club. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, Narmada. Thank you, Nancy, for being at the, setting up the whole thing for us. Thank you, Srilata. Thank you, Shreya.
My pleasure. Learned a lot today.
Yeah, there's such a lot we've learned today. Thank you, Aparna. Just overwhelming the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to use my brains.
Yeah.
Aparna, do you edit also all this? As part of Emerald Group, you do editing of literature texts?
No, I don't, but I can start.
No, somebody wanted. I was asking for it. That's what I
No, not yet. I'll
they are doing. No, Emerald is still continuing to do.
Yeah, I have. No, I'm not. I'm been little low on activity, but I have to start. Yeah, I mean,
No,
restart.
but they are taking up literary text and publishing and all that.
No, I don't.
No.
No publishing. Just
Okay.
just.
Okay.
This is her own.
I know this one. No, the word emerald. That is why I asked. Was it you had?
No, I have nothing to do with Emerald Publisher.
Then how did you choose this name? Just like that.
No, emerald dove is the state bird of Tamil Nadu.
Okay, good, good, good. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
that's
always had a connection. I mean, I had that. I mean, I thought this is part of the Emerald Publishing Group.
no, emerald dove
Okay,
is different.
good, good, good. Okay, then you can continue. You can start the other one too. Yes. All the best.
Yeah, thank you.
You're right.